Hey guys, you're right. Welcome back to Guitar Lessons by E.O.A. So, in today's lesson, we are going to be continuing on from substitutions. So, this video will be titled Substitutions Part 2. So, remember in the previous video where we looked at dominant chords with altered tones? Alright, so that's a flat fifth, sharp fifth, flat ninth, or sharp ninth. And they can be used effectively to replace dominant chords when the next chord is one whose root is a fourth higher, one whose root is a half step lower, and a minor type chord with the same root. Now please note that altered tones are really good for adding a different sound. And just because the chords are not altered does not mean that they can't be used in a chord progression. But it is most effective when you're using these altered tones when the next chord is a fourth higher, one whose root is a fourth higher, one whose root is a half step lower, and a minor type chord with the same root. Alright, so let's use the chord C9 flat 5. This is the root. The root, the third, the flat fifth, G flat, G flat. Alright. This is the flat seventh, and then this is the ninth. C9 flat seventh. Okay. Now a fourth higher can be F11, which will be, alright, the root, F. So we're going to omit the third and the fifth. Alright. This is the flat seventh. This is the ninth. Sorry, this is the flat seventh. This is the ninth. And then this is the 11th, which is the B flat. Alright. So the flat fifth is the altered tone. Beautiful chord progression. Okay, another one. So C9 flat 5. One whose root is a half step lower, which would be, okay, let's do B9, which would be so these two are silenced, muted. So it's from here. So you bar this, second finger, fifth string, third fret, third finger, third string, second fret, and pinky, second string, third fret. Okay, now the final one, a minor type chord with the same root. So let's do C minor 6. So from C9 flat 5. So how you play that chord is you bar the top 4 strings, Then you put your second finger on the third string, second fret, your third finger on the fifth string, third fret. Sorry, fifth string. Yes, that's right. Fifth string, third fret, and then your pinky, your fourth finger on the first string, third fret, or you can just mute it. But if you want more of a clearer fifth tone, then you can just add. And the reason why is because with the C9 flat 5, remember the fifth is flattened, so you can there is more of a clearer transition between to the flat fifth in the C9 flat 9, and then the fifth in the C minor 6. So from the top, so let's go. One more time. 1. All right. You heard those transitions and how they make sense with the auto tones. So let's play the last one, but instead of playing C9 flat 5, let's just play C9. Okay, and let's see if we can hear any difference. So this is C9. So we've got C, E, G, A sharp, D. So I'm basically barring the top 3 strings with my pinky, with my fourth finger. Then I'll put my second finger on the third fret, fifth string, and then my first finger on the fourth string, second fret. Now C minor 6. You don't really hear much of a transition because we're also playing the G on the C9 and also the same G on the C minor 6. But then when you make the fifth flattened, that's when you can hear a better transition. Now C minor 6. Did you hear that? Beautiful, isn't it? So these are just called substitutions. Substitutions is a way of finding a better resolution for something that is not common. These chords are not often used in music, so oftentimes people don't know how to put them in chord progressions. So it's like when you're putting chord progressions, you would know that, okay, in order for this to sound good, to sound consonant and not dissonant, is next chord a fourth higher, flat step lower, and then, sorry, a half step lower. So in the UK we call it semitone. So it will be fourth higher, semitone lower, and then a minor type chord with the same root, in order for it to sound pleasing to the ears. Okay, let's do another example. Imagine in a song we encountered these 4 chords: a C major 7, a D7, a D minor 7, and then a G7. C major 7, D7, D minor 7, and then G7. So notice that the minor 7 has the same root as the dominant 7. So because of it, it just sounds quite similar. So so that's C major 7. So this is C major 7, D7, D minor 7. So notice there isn't much of a transition. C major 7th, D7, D minor 7. And to be honest, the D minor 7 and the G7 sounds quite similar. So instead of us to play that, let's say, for example, we were to play these 4 chords. We can play a C major 7 from here. So we can play C major 7 and then D7 sharp 9 augmented, which is this. Sorry, this chord is quite tricky to play. And then we can play D minor 11. And then finally we can play G7 flat 9 augmented. So that's from the top. Okay, so that's more of an advanced level of chord progressions in terms of substitutions. Now, the other example that I just gave, that one uses open chords. It kind of lacked variety in comparison to this one, but even though this one has more variety, it's it's quite harder to play and it's not beginner friendly. So what did we learn today? We learned that chord substitutions are effective only when they're used correctly, and how substitutions or chords that are altered cannot be used anyhow. They have to be used strategically and in a way that sounds good and has effectiveness in the previous chord. Okay, so that's why when we did the C9 flat 5, that the fact that the fifth was flattened, it created more of a progression when we played the C minor 6, because the C minor 6 uses the fifth tone, but the C9 flat 5 uses the fifth tone but flattened. Alright? So you can hear that transition between the C9 flat 5 and then the C minor 6. And also, using basic chords can also be replaced with inversions. Alright, so the chord progression that I played after the basic chords, they were called inversions. Chords that were more complex, harder to play, but had more of a transition prior, and the chords that succeeded the previous chords. So the chords that came before and after, there was more of a transition because the chords were more complex and used different tones. Instead of D7, then D minor 7, then G7. You can see how they are actually quite similar to one another. Okay, guitar lessons by E.O.A. Stay tuned for more.